This is Feeling Loudly, a podcast about the power of emotion, explored through the lens of astrology, divination, and music. I'm Jana Barrett, an astrologer, diviner, poet, and witch, and I'm here to help you feel your feels and discover your depths. Hi, humans. Welcome to the podcast. It's been a few weeks. It's been an intense few weeks. I hope you're okay. I thought about coming on and doing a podcast last weekend, but honestly, I was just in the shits. Not like literal poop, but I was not in a good place. And I'm definitely not alone in that. And I just want to acknowledge how intense the world is right now and send you a huge, 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 huge hug. I'm coming on today to do a little mini tarot reading for you, and this is focused on Pluto's ingress into Aquarius, which happens on November 19th. So my hope is that this little episode will offer some grounding advice, some insight on what we're letting go of and what we're maybe making space for, and any other messages that want to come through in this moment. But before I do that, I want to call out that I'm offering a really exciting tarot journey called Meeting the Minors that begins on December 1st. If you're familiar with 22 Days of Tarot, which is a challenge with the major arcana that I've done the past couple of years, this is a revised version of that focuses on the minor arcana instead. And it's going to be really, 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 really fun and insightful and intuitive and powerful. When we do these journeys, we're in a group and it's all hosted over email and my Discord server. And you get daily card of the day prompts and reflective exercises and intuitive exercises. And we trade stories with each other and we just immerse ourselves in the energy of each card on each day. And it's a really cool way to engage with the tarot and to expand your intuitive capabilities and skills, to deepen into self-trust, and to get really familiar with the way that your guides speak to you and the way that each archetype presents itself. As opposed to sitting back and learning keywords and studying definitions, we get to study life and we get to be really, really present in our daily lived experience. And in that way, allow the cards to come toward us and to introduce themselves to us in their own unique way and to learn from each other's experiences. So I've found it to be really beautiful. It's probably my most popular offering that I've hosted in the past has been 22 days. And the way that this journey, Meeting the Minors, will differ is that it'll actually be held over the course of 10 months with 4 2-week periods that are the actual focus challenges. So for 2 weeks in every mutable season, from the new moon to the full moon, we will be on one tarot journey with one suit. So for example, on the Sag new moon, on December 1st, we're going to begin with the Ace of Wands and go all the way up from the Ace to the King of Wands and complete there with a full moon circle over Zoom. And then we'll take a couple months off. And then in Pisces season, we'll come back together for another focus challenge with the Suit of Cups or water. And it'll continue that way. And our final challenge will be held during Virgo season of next year. In between, we'll have ongoing space to connect and discuss with one another and to deepen our practices and our relationships and connections. So it's really a sort of initiatory journey. It's a beautiful experience, no matter your level of experience with the tarot. If you're new to the tarot, if you're a reader yourself, all are welcome. And again, all you need really is a deck that you want to work with, even though that's even optional because you will have photos of the cards featured, but a deck that you want to work with, your little intuitive self, and internet access, and a Discord account if you want to participate in the discussions in our Discord channel, which I really, really, really recommend you do. Okay, so that is available for registration now, and sign up closes on November 26th. So if you want to get in on that, I'd suggest making your way over there and saving your spots. We might hit capacity sooner than that, but we'll see. So if you're interested, go check out the landing page. It's linked down below in the show notes. And we will also be hosting 22 days next year. So don't fret if you've been waiting for that. Just make sure you're on my newsletter list so you can hear about all the good stuff. Okay, let's get into our reading. Exhale. So Pluto in Aquarius. We are approaching the beginning of a new Plutonian era. Again, it begins technically more officially on November 19th, but we've been experiencing Pluto moving in and out of Aquarius back into Capricorn over the last year and change. And that's been a big, fluctuating, intense time. It's been a period of a lot of testing and a lot of pressure, a lot of polarization. Pluto at the anaretic degree, aka the last degree of a sign, is very intense. It's the closure of a chapter, and it can feel like we're being pushed through the birth canal and we're about to like suffocate before we make our way out, or we're really, really, really tight in the cocoon, and it gets so, so tight in the last moments that we think we're going to be squeezed to death, and then we emerge and we break through. And so it can have that very, very viscerally intense feeling. It can bring up a lot of survival instincts and fears, and it can break down residual structures, Capricorn, that need to be broken down in order to make way for something new. Pluto is the god of the underworld, and so we inevitably face our depths, especially when we're experiencing a Pluto transit to an angle or a planet in our charts. We get drawn into our depths, into our shadows, and also there's often contemplations around power and both like healthy applications and unhealthy applications of power, or healthy use and abuse of power. And so, of course, we've seen so much of this on the collective stage, and we're in this very intense final gasp of this era that's been occurring since 2008. So it's a big chunk of time. And I will be writing more about this in the future and talking more about it. And we'll definitely be doing a lot more talking about it on Patreon. And we'll probably do a focused pick a card reading for this topic in particular for Pluto stuff. But for now, what I want to do is to keep this relatively short and digestible and to stick with the tarot. So we're not going to talk much more about the actual technical astrology of it, but what does the tarot want to tell us today about this ingress? So we have the Knight of Pentacles coming up, and I'm using the Next World Tarot by Christy C. Rode. So the Knight of Pentacles in this deck, I associate the Knight of Pentacles with Taurus, which is a fixed sign, and so is Aquarius, and Pluto is entering a fixed sign. We'll be forming a square to Taurus. This card is called the methodical approach in this deck, and we see someone who's on a bike and they're balancing what looks like, I don't know if it doesn't look like crystal, maybe it's a crystal, maybe it's like trash. There's something that they're balancing on their palm as they ride a bike. And it looks like they've paused, like they're pausing and they're looking at us quite intently as they hold this in their hand. And it's almost like, here, there's something here that feels valuable. Maybe I've composted this. Maybe I've dug this up from the depths, or I found this in like a trash heap, but it holds some sort of value. And that in itself can feel quite Plutonian. Like we're going into the depths. Like I said, I felt like I was in the shitter earlier. Like that is Plutonian. Like we're in the murky spaces in the deep, deep depths, and we're working through some shit. We're working through some stuff. But in this case, this person probably had the patience to find the gold in the experience, or to find the gold in like the wasteland or the dumping ground. And so there's some message that's coming up here about what gold you can take away from your experience over the last 16 years of Pluto in Capricorn, and how you can bring that up to the surface with you as you prepare for this next era. Sometimes it can feel really grounding to think about what we've been through and how much we've changed during a big long-term outer planet transit like that in the area of our chart that was getting activated. So for you, that would be your Capricorn house or houses if you use quadrant systems like I do. It'll just be one house if you use whole sign houses, and it could be more than one house. if you use any quadrant house systems or timing based systems. So, anyway, we are consistently deciding as we move through this ingress, so there's an invitation to keep deciding on discovering the treasure within this experience. And as we reflect again on this last era chapter of our lives, especially what went down in our cap houses, we can understand how much change has occurred there and try to not just focus on the worst points of our experience or the most difficult points of that experience. Because Pluto, while, again, the god of the underworld, Pluto is intense by nature, and Pluto can bring us into really painful experiences and can activate our deepest fears. And so we don't think about it as this like pretty, soft experience that's like glittery and happy, but it's intense and it's challenging and it's confronting, and it can activate grief, it can activate rage, it can bring us into really intense emotions too as we process experiences that often trigger our wounds and our pain and our trauma and all sorts of stuff. So try to find ways to ground. We just experienced a beautiful Taurus full moon. It was quite Uranian, and we had algal action big time. So it wasn't the softest, most Venusian moon, but it was a powerful one. And it invited us to get into our senses and to ground in very practical Taurian ways, like connecting to our senses, like immersing ourselves in sensual experiences as a way to cope and as a way to soothe and to heal. And so that call is here. Again, this is a Taurus card for me. And Pluto will be squaring the sign of Taurus as it journeys through Aquarius. And so there is just a hefty need for us to be in our bodies and to not get too swept out into the ether or into our heads and to try to make sense of everything, and to know that there's a lot that's happening internally in our bodies, in our spirits, in our depths that we can't possibly describe, articulate, or wrap our minds around. And it might require just surrendering into our physical somatic experience so that we are not constantly trying to make sense of everything. What else do we need to know about Pluto's ingress into Aquarius? We have the Three of Wands reversed coming up. Okay, so in this deck, this card is called Foresight. And this is a Mars and Aries card. We have a person who is standing in what looks like a little sort of ramshackle library situation. Like it almost looks like an outdoor library. There are these bookshelves and they have lots and lots of books. There's what looks like some type of little rain catching situation happening up top. Like it looks like they're catching rain. And they are looking out kind of shrewdly, and they have a couple books in their arm and they have a key dangling from their neck. And there's this sense that there's a lot of knowledge behind them that they can lean on throughout this experience. Whatever it is that's on the horizon, there is knowledge available. And so I know this is a little bit of a contrast from the message I just shared about like not being in the head. But with the Three of Wands reverse coming out, it's sort of indicating to me that there's inevitably going to be stuff that we can't prepare for. And prepping, as in like prepping for cataclysmic situations and for climate disaster and all sorts of stuff, is something that I think is on a lot of people's minds right now, and for good reason. A lot of us are thinking about how to get more prepared for this next era from a very practical standpoint. And my invitation to you would be, how can you get emotionally prepared for the things that you can't physically prepare for? How can you prepare for uncertainty? How can you accumulate the inner resources and the connections, the outer resources, as in, supportive connection with other people and creatures and land, that can buoy you through the periods where you do experience shock or where you do experience loss or where things blindside you, because that is life and that is inevitable. And at the brink of so much outer planet change and an upcoming nodal change, there's just a lot happening and so much uncertainty is in the air. I focused on this quite a bit in my last newsletter that went out for the full moon in Taurus. And oh my gosh, excuse me one second. That was a very strange thing that just happened. I was just talking, and then my Sonos speaker in my bedroom started playing My One and Only Love by John Coltrane. You may have heard it announce it. I don't know. Regardless, that was interesting because it was just on the heels of me talking about uncertainty and surprises, and my speaker started wooing me. So, anyway, I'm going to keep that because it feels interesting. And maybe that song has meaning to someone out there. It's a beautiful song, classic. But I was talking about the Three of Wands reversed and foresight, and how sometimes we don't have the information. We don't have the opportunity to see what's ahead. The Three of Wands reversed to me is sometimes about us not having a long-term vision and maybe fumbling because we like don't know how to plan because we can't even begin to imagine what the future is going to look like. And that really is what this moment feels like, I think, for a lot of us. It definitely does for me. I'm having trouble with long term planning. I'm having trouble visioning what the future might look like for myself and for my communities because just so much is up in the air. So if you feel that way too, you're definitely not alone. And there's some peace in that, I think, just acknowledging like there's really no practical way for me to understand or predict what the world is going to look like 20 years from now when Pluto enters Pisces. There's just no way for me to know. So maybe there's some acceptance. Maybe there's some release. Maybe there's some surrender that you can find in acknowledging that for yourself too. I want to get one more card before we close out this reading with just any bonus advice for us on navigating this ingress. The Four of Pentacles reversed. This actually came up as my card of the week, my personal card of the week. And the message for me was about releasing attachment, releasing control, not getting so fixated on one particular outcome or direction that we lose sight of the bigger picture or even kind of hold ourselves hostage in an old reality or an old version of ourselves. Often, when we're holding really tight to a particular way of doing things or to a particular outcome or desire, we lose track and we lose attunement with ourselves because we're so fixated on what felt true to us at one point that we're not tracking and paying attention to the newness, to what's bubbling up within us now. And that can keep us stuck. It makes me think about when maybe a relationship or a job or a career path or a home made us really happy at one point, and we decided kind of with our whole being, like, this has to be it. And so we hitched ourselves to that reality. And then in the future, when reality shifts and when it comes to challenge us and when it shakes our foundations, we might continue to cling to that thinking, this is the thing that's right and everything else that's happening is wrong. When in fact, the shakeups and the forced transformations are the truth. There's actually deep truth in that. But because we've hitched ourselves so tightly to something and we've become so identified with it and dependent on it, maybe, then whatever's challenging it feels like the thing that we have to kill or push away or suppress or ignore or deny or whatever, because it's challenging whatever we're attached to so deeply. And we haven't come to accept that maybe that's the thing that needs to be reassessed. So make some space for that. This is a moment of endings. Pluto at the anaretic degree of Capricorn at the end of a 16-year journey through Capricorn is a very pivotal moment. And we're seeing this on the world stage, and we're probably seeing this in our personal lives too, especially wherever Capricorn falls and wherever 29 Cap falls for us in particular. And any aspects that that may be forming to personal planets or angles, those bodies and celestial features of our charts will be in focus too. So understand that release is inevitable to a degree, and that it's cliche, but it makes space for new beginnings. It makes space for new growth. It clears the ground. It turns the soil. It disrupts and it changes and it transforms so that we can lay a new foundation, so that we can rebuild more authentically. And I know that's not necessarily the most comforting thing to hear when we're going through breakdown and when we're going through loss and grief and any form of chaos, personal or societal or whatever. But it's true. It's true that these death processes can open us up to a lot more life. So I hope you hold that within you, and I hope that that offers a degree of comfort, solace, whatever, peace of mind going into this transitional phase and this very transitional week. That's all I have. If you would like more, you can join me on Patreon. That's the best way to support my work and this podcast. It's the best way to get extra content from me and extra readings from me. And you're also welcome, if you are a leftist occultist human, you're welcome to join my Discord server. It's by request only now. So you have to just submit a little form so that we can verify that you're a human and who you say you are. Just getting a little bit tighter about security measures going into this Pluto and Aquarius time for a lot of reasons, and wanting it to be a protected space. So we decided on that collectively for the most part, and it felt like the right move. So, do I have anything else to say? I don't think so. Thank you for being here. I'm sending you a lot of love and support, and you can always book a reading with me if you need extra. Bye, y'all.